Welcome back to the Crazy Elves World Championship, guys. Today's match is going to be between mastertan, starting here in the first game with the white pieces, against TwelveTeen, from whose perspective I'm watching this. And these guys are, I think, number 3 and number 6. Let me check that real quick. Yeah, number 3 and number 6 in the live rankings in the Crazy Elves World Championship. mastertan, however, has played more games. So, as always in these round-robin tournaments, every match is going to be very important to the standings, so let's see what happens. If you'll permit me to scroll back through the moves real quick. I know people don't like me doing this, but let's just catch up and see what happened before I tuned in. Okay, so we had an e4, d5, and a gambit on e6, this line that TwelveTeen likes to play sometimes. It's got lots of open lines in the middle game. White's king is still in the center. Black's a little bit more developed. However, white doesn't have that extra material, so I'd say it's roughly equal here. Queen's looking odd over here on h3. Not sure what that's doing. It's going to get hit with a lot of tempo, I imagine. Yeah, black's fine. Black's got a lot of space. It's going to get a lot of tempo with these pieces on the board attacking the queen. And white's just kind of hunched up in a ball right now. He doesn't have any pieces past the third rank here. Letting Force know I'm covering this. So far we have 13 spectators. We got the usual crowd here with mastertan the Man, Barry Boswick, Chuckleman, etc. Flourish, of course. I'm hoping that we get a lot of an even bigger turn up for the tournament tomorrow. I'm recording, of course. I actually haven't yet ventured into the dangerous territory of actually trying to stream these live. But I just record them locally and then upload to YouTube later. But anyway, yeah, like I was saying, there's going to be a tournament tomorrow to decide the final 8th candidate since Chicken Crossroad Dan Yeager had to withdraw for whatever reason from the candidates. There's going to be a tournament tomorrow on Lichess at 6 p.m. GMT. If you weren't aware, check that out. It's in the forums. The tournament page is linked there, and that will decide the 8th man to take his place and compete as the 8th candidate. So it should be a good, very interesting tournament, and sending out lots of invites and hoping a lot of the stronger players that maybe weren't aware of this event when it first started up and so couldn't get involved. I'm hoping they find out about this last chance to get involved in the 2017 Crazy Elves World Championship and take it up. We already have Penguin GIM, Andrew Tang participating in this tournament, so that's at least one very strong Crazy Elves player in the mix. And all right, while I've been prattling on about that tournament, we have TwelveTeen, who seems to have taken the driver's seat in this match, or in this game. Down a little bit on time, nearing the 30-second mark. Katakamata does not approve of the gambit line that TwelveTeen played. Alright, so these are actually... This looks like a dumb piece, but it's covering the square the king's on for if the king ever gets checked and has to run away. And having two bishops side by side next to the king is often a powerful defensive mechanism, so... Knight covering the queen drop. So this is interesting. It's going to come down to a time scramble here. This knight can never move, otherwise mate will appear instantaneously on h8. So yeah, he's going to counterattack with 16 seconds on the clock. What's his threat here? King steps back, protecting c2. Queen scoops up g4 with check. And that's nice. The queen comes on to defend the king, and now that's no longer a threat, so that knight no longer has to be maintained on that square. Equal time. Here we go. 15 seconds to 13 seconds. Black's on the attack here. And he's scooping up all these pieces with check. And he's going to keep that tempo up too. Just not going to let the foot off the gas pedal here. Maybe at d2, threatening rook at c1. Queen takes that, bishop takes, and mastertan's going to try to do him on the clock, but it's not going to be enough. The rook is blocking off this file, so queen here is the mate threat. The king steps up, and this surely is going to be a mating net. There it is. First game goes to 12-teen. So 1 game to 0 games, 12-teen. Remember, this is a 10-game match. So we played at 10 games no matter what the result. And alright, we've got the orangutan from 12-teen, aka the Polish, aka 12-teen's favorite weapon here from the white pieces. Mastertan puts a pawn on e5 to blunt this bishop. That's often the theme when you fianch out of the dark square bishop so early. Black will often establish a pawn on e5, maybe pawn on f6 sometimes. But you don't want to give this bishop just free reign along the dark squares. Mastertan gets his d5 push in, so now he has a big center here. And I suppose in these types of structures, the theme of the contention is that these bishops are going to be vying against black's big center, essentially. b5. That's interesting. So he's giving up his nice light squared bishop for that knight on c6. But it also wins a pawn. The c5 pawn undermines the defense of that square. So now he's also attacking these. So he's managed to win a pawn with tempo, because he's going to have to, or Mastertan's going to have to find a way to defend one of these pawns. Maybe bishop at d5 is okay. And if takes, then queen takes, or even c takes. That's somewhat passive. You want to find an active solution here if you're Mastertan. You don't want to be just defending here on the back foot and letting white get all this initiative. So bishop at d5 does happen here. Got someone with zero Crazy House Games commentating on this. Alright, so he's at least managed to activate his queen. He's attacking the bishop right now and simultaneously defending his pawns. White currently doesn't have any knights to place on the board attacking the queen. He also can't attack it with a diagonal piece, so it seems to sit fairly comfortably there on b5 for the present moment. So how does white want to defend this bishop? Maybe bishop at d4, something of that nature. Defending this bishop, putting another piece on this diagonal. Maybe rook b1. Does white have any other threats here? The threat is this. Maybe this weak d3 square could be a problem. So he's going to take c4. Also, if rook had come to b1, pawn at a2 was also a problem. Alright, so now f7 is going to be quite weak. Attacks f7 through the queen and also defends c2. Queen hops back to b5 now. Does white want to sack on f7? No, he doesn't. Not yet, anyway. That's a nice move. Centralized knight there on d4. Attacking those two pieces. He's going to scoop that bishop up, and now he's going to have some really nice light square bishops just raking across the board here. Crisscrossing across the board. And now at d7 is possible, or at e6 is probably even better. Yeah. Mastertan is going to be hard pressed to defend this. Probably just taking there on f7 first, and now bishop f3, or bishop f3 can be met by bishop at e4, but it is attacking this square. Roughly equal on the clock here, 1 minute each. White doesn't have another knight. Otherwise, a knight at g6 would be a nice resource. So again, we've got the theme of these bishops controlling all this territory for white. At g5 is possible. There it is. Mastertan trying to put some more pieces on the dark squares. That's what this bishop at e5 is all about. If you take that, it looks quite dangerous here. Notice you can't interpose here with the piece blocking that bishop. That's controlled. So now he's just going to be able to pick this rook off. Yeah, I was going to record the this one and All You Need Is Love match that happened this past week, but that match for whatever reason started a little bit early. Started an hour early, and yeah, so that screwed me up a little bit, and I wasn't able to actually record it. But anyway, so another game goes to 12-teen. He's won now with the black and the white pieces, and he goes up 2-0 against Mastertan. We're going to get the same opening here, and now often when you push this early b4, I was going to say the knight is often rerouted over here to the king side, but Mastertan goes for a slightly different route. I wonder where this knight's headed. Maybe he's just trying to stop c5, if that's possible. TwelveTeen is progressing towards that midway mark in the 2800s. He's at 2840 presently. I know he's been at he's probably been close to 3,000, maybe even over 3,000 here in League chess. But nowadays, yeah, it's rare that you see players reaching that 25 or 2850 threshold or so. Even Jan Lee is kind of hovering around the 2800 mark nowadays, 2750. Same for 12-teen, so 2840 is certainly very impressive. With the player pool as contentious and as strong as it's ever been here on League chess. Alright, so Mastertan has a lot of space here. The queen sitting on g6. I'm not sure if that's the best square for the queen, but it is targeting g2. So if that's taken, though, probably a knight is going to appear on d6, probably force the king to sidestep here. Maybe just castle. No, you can't even castle here because a knight will fork the king and the queen. So now bishop e7. Do you want to go at d6 and then maybe queen takes rook here, or what else is Mastertan thinking about here? Puts the bishop on d6 instead. Okay, so using a piece that was already established here on the dark squares has taken. Now you're threatening knight at c7. He's still allowing this to drop. I don't think black can take that safely yet. Bishop guards against that knight drop. You can still play it, although it's probably not accurate. Yeah, he's going to put the knight over here instead, attacking the queen and defending g2. And if the queen comes... Yeah, the queen's gonna... was gonna say if it comes here, it's just gonna be hit. And I was gonna say it's gonna have a hard time finding a safe square. But h5 seems to do the trick presently. You can offer a queen trade if you ever move this knight. So I think that's what Mastertan is doing. Maybe he's guarding this from this bishop, which is kind of lurking on this square, guarding this knight so this knight can move. Perhaps proposing this queen trade, yeah. So that was what this bishop at g3 move was about. So now that can't be taken. What if you take? No, that's probably not great. Just a piece for the queen. And you don't want to give up this queen. Takes, and then white's threatening just to get rid of this knight and mate. So yeah, 12-teen under some pressure here. What was this move all about, I wonder? Anyway, I do like white's position here. He seems to have all the pressure and has all the important squares guarded around his king. For example, knight drop isn't going to happen on g5 because that's guarded. He also has his king's square guarded should the king ever move. White seems perfectly safe here, whereas black is still weak. He has this chronic weakness on the dark squares. So how is 12-teen going to address this? He's probably always calculating lines where you take here and give the queen up. Okay, makes a few exchanges, and now he's attacking both these pieces. Also guarding this square. He doesn't want white to get another knight in hand, because then a knight at c7 will be fairly devastating. I think Fishy Vishy has been having some problems with the Slack, so the game of the week Slack, I mean, the forums. So I'll have to get back to him on that. This can be taken with check, but then what's your follow-up? If takes, bishop block, probably knight here, king can just step back, so knight appears first. Okay. Yeah, this is dangerous. Knight at c7, pawn at e7, or bishop at e7, even better, attacking the queen. That's taken. Now queen here is possible. Now he's just going to take that rook, also threatening queen at c7. Time is going to be an issue in 19 seconds to 14 seconds, but mastertan is pressing and up on the clock, so let's see if he can capitalize here. Distracting the king away. Now it's going to take the rook with promoting to the queen, and that's going to be mate using the pen. Very nice. Mastertan strikes back. He's on the board now at 1-2 in this match. And we're going to get d4 opening here with an early h3, and I think he's going to go g3. Yeah, h3, g3, put the bishop on g2, and establish an ultra-safe kingside, essentially. Alright, bishop posts up on this diagonal, and that's blocked off because that's always a dangerous pin. Knight's going to hop in to the square on e5. You don't really want to take that and allow this pawn to be established on e5. You also don't really want to allow this knight just to live there forever. So he's going to take it. Probably bishop takes e7, queen takes, and then you can start dropping stuff like knight at h5 and attacking the dark squares here. So if take, oops, actually if takes knight here, this is hanging. So maybe he wants to guard e5 first. Yeah, you want to guard e5 first. You don't want to just put this knight in h5 and sack straight away. That would be a full piece. And this is always a thorn in black side if you can preserve this kind of. I forget who it was that said like a pawn on e5 is a good basis for an attack. Some famous chess superstar back in the day. Can't remember who exactly said that, but it holds for crazy else as well. g4. Okay, so that's a creative solution there for TwelveTeen. g4 with tempo on the bishop, and then vacating this g3 square for this bishop to guard e5. And this is actually a nice little setup he has here with these bishops. Oops. Looks like TwelveTeen managed to scoop up a pawn there. This is hanging, but it's going to take on e5. Never mind what I said about that pawn. I don't think you want to give up this bishop for that knight unless you have a clear follow-up. So he's just going to take on b7 instead. He dominates this diagonal with both his bishop and queen. Centralized knight attacking e2. So now it's going to be a battle of the bishops against the knights here. It seems like TwelveTeen has these nice bishops, both with a lot of rain here. Looking at a lot of squares all across the board, and these knights are also coordinating quite well on the light squares. Okay, if you take here, probably you can take here. Or is there something better? Taking here is always something you want to look at. If takes, and then a pawn, add f3, something like that. Okay, mastertan puts a bishop on this diagonal. That's a nice move. Attacking the queen and also putting his own bishop to not directly oppose this bishop, but to oppose it indirectly, I guess you could say. 12-team counters by attacking the queen on e7. That can't. He's just gonna. Okay, so he wants this queen trade. I think mastertan is quite safe here, and he does have threats. He does have knight takes e2 check with a pawn at f3. If he ever gets another knight in hand, knight check will be very dangerous because then the knight could appear on f3. Although this bishop does guard the h2 square from queen drop. At f6, so if that's taken, what, just at g7, king takes, but you don't have like another knight or anything. Okay, so I mean that's taken, but what's your follow-up here if you're 12-team? Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm on board with that decision because this knight does guard this square, so a knight drop here isn't going to mate or anything. And I think mastertan has a fairly safe king, and as I say that can just be taken, I believe. Takes, pawn here, takes. Maybe I'm missing something. No, I think that can be taken. And 12-team has given up like 3 pawns or something to try to attack here, but yeah, I'm not sure if I'm convinced by this attack, because this bishop defends these very important squares from knight drop, and he's safe from the dark squares as well. So okay, this bishop is looking at h2, threatening a knight f3, and if that's taken, queen there mate, so that's blocked off, blocking this diagonal off. mastertan has about double the time on the clock as 12-team as well, and I think he's pressing here. He's just going to like to remain very solid. But 12-team, of course, is incredibly resourceful, so let's see if he can cook up any last-minute theatrics. Ooh, that's dangerous. If that's taken, a knight's going to appear on f5. He probably shouldn't have allowed that, although it may not be the end of the world. Oh, that, as I say that, yeah, that's probably shouldn't have been allowed anyway. That's h5 is taken because of this pin. What's your follow-up? You have 5 seconds on the clock to capitalize on this initiative you managed to drum up in the last second. He's going to sack on h6, draw the king out, get rid of these pawns, but it's going to be too little too late, I feel. 2 seconds on the clock for 12-team to mastertan 6.5. Pre-move is the name of the game right now. mastertan is playing a little bit slow. Can he do it? Oh my goodness, 12-team manages to scrape out that win by pretty much pre-moving nothing but the last like 5 or 10 moves there. Wow. I was all but writing him off there. I thought he had no chance to come back with that time deficit, but yeah, as I said, he's an awfully creative and resourceful player and managed to drum up some theatrics. Didn't quite believe it, but wow, so that's 3-1 to 12-team. Yeah, that was definitely a steal. 12-team going down the same gambit line on e6 that I think was essayed in the first game. And the queen comes out again, so mastertan's been playing this. It's an interesting way of approaching this. Getting the queen to the fray early. It ended up on a weird square last time. See if that happens again. Alright, so what's the setup that mastertan is going for here? This queen takes away a natural developing square for the knight. He's going to take this g7 pawn. In doing so, he does fall a little bit behind in development, but is probably compensated for by his 2 pawns. I think that's probably more than enough compensation, because now we can come in on the light squares. So if bishop here, maybe just pawn at c6. I'm not sure if that really accomplishes that much, and maybe you want to hold on to this pawn. No, instead it's going to appear on e4, blocking off the queen from c2, or the bishop from c2. Oh, what happened there? Okay, so that's just 2 pieces for the queen, essentially. It's going to scoop this knight back up. Okay, so I was going to say maybe just d4, and then you can menace a pawn drop on h6 if you're white. This bishop isn't really doing all that much. It's kind of overlapping with this bishop. Somewhat redundant. You'd rather be able to place that bishop over here on the king side, perhaps. But it can't always drop back. Now d4 does appear. Black does have the queen in hand, but he's not going to be able to do too very much with that, it seems. Whereas white has the minor pieces, and he can do something with these minor pieces. Pawn at h6, and then dropping his minor pieces on the king side. So mastertan is going to give a little bit of material back in order to get safely castled on the king side. And now he does have the initiative and some weak squares to work with. Yeah, f6 is always a possibility. There it is. So if this pawn takes, then h6 is quite open to a piece or pawn drop. Yeah, I'd say mastertan is for choice here. TwelveTeen is probably trying to think if he can get away with taking here, queening, and giving up the queen. It's going to take on c1 instead. I think it's so that his queen covers h6. So he's going to scoop up the material. He's going to take this way instead of this way, so that his queen covers the square should this pawn ever move. Oh my, yeah, if king h1 there, queen takes, rook was probably going to be mating, I think, because of this mother. So now this queen, which probably shouldn't have been allowed to get back in the game, he probably should have, mastertan, I think, should have just recaptured that. This queen has reappeared on this powerful g5 square, covering all of the dark squares on Black's king side, and being a very dangerous both attacker and very good defensive piece. Because remember, this is just a pawn. It can be sacked for a minor piece or anything without losing any material. So TwelveTeen has managed to regain the initiative here, it seems. Mastertan, however, still quite safe, with all these minor pieces hovering around the king side, and this bishop as well, lending some defensive support. TwelveTeen has honed in on the one weak spot and White's defensive, namely this f2 square. White is going to defend this square with all its might. Maybe he can even move this knight away now because Black doesn't have any diagonal pieces. But now he's just going to grovel, kind of, on this f2 square, and he does manage to get some safety on that square, on these dark squares. And it looks like, how are we going to breach these defensives now? Maybe this square is still weak. TwelveTeen is going to come in the light squares. He's still down on the clock again. Let's see if he can repeat his performance from last game and come back on the clock to win. Yeah, Cows are sweet saying nice D by mastertan, nice D indeed. These bishops are crucially defending a lot of important squares from mate threats. Now pawn here is a mate threat. This bishop does come back into the game. It does end up being an important piece. Let's see if mastertan learns his lesson from the last game and keeps up the pressure. That's going to be it. He managed to find some initiative here as the clock dwindles. And there we go. mastertan strikes back 2-3 to mastertan. So that was very much a seesaw affair, with mastertan giving up his queen early and for a couple minor pieces and getting a lot of space, a lot of activity, and putting TwelveTeen under some serious pressure. And then TwelveTeen managed to flip the script with maybe something of an inaccuracy on mastertan's part, and he got that queen back into play and managed to drum up his own attack. And then the script was flipped, and TwelveTeen was attacking, but then the time came to bear there at the end, and mastertan was up on the clock, and in the time scramble, he managed to drum up a winning attack. So yeah, really a seesaw affair there. mastertan electing for a slightly different setup against the early dark square bishop fianchetto this time, with these pawns on e5, f6, and g7, as I mentioned last time. It's a fairly standard setup. And TwelveTeen goes for an e4 push. Very interesting, very enterprising. Instead of going for the e3, which is normally what is played in conjunction with a fianchetto bishop on the dark squares, he's going to go for e4 and immediately challenge this big center that black has built up. Kels is asking why TwelveTeen plays these quote-unquote ridiculous openings, but I think it's just what he's comfortable with, and he's had a lot of success with it. He's quite capable of playing e4, e5, highly theoretical stuff as well. But he's such a strong player that he can get away with this sort of thing, and it gets his opponents out of any opening preparation. That's a nice square for this bishop, skewering these two pieces. This rook never really wants to move from this file because it covers a lot of important squares. For example, a knight drop on g7. mastertan probably thinking about a sack here, but yeah, it's probably too dangerous. And the queen's going to come out into the fray. Yeah, that's dangerous. That is going to be dangerous. Black is quite weak on the light squares here. Maybe just take here if a knight. Yeah, you can just take here. If knight g2, that can just be taken. That's not going to be played. Maybe queen here, give your king some space to run. No, he's going to attack this queen. Probably a good idea not to let it just sit there comfortably. But when its queen moves, you have pawn at h7 now. So what's TwelveTeen thinking about here? He's just going to give the queen up in order to attack. That's a strong move. Because if this is taken, you get two pieces for the queen. And tempo. Takes, king takes, you take this knight. Or even a pawn here first or whatever. But that's strong, I think. So if this is taken, now he's just going to take that queen. He's going to allow two pieces to drop for that queen. Maybe bishop here first, maybe pawn here first. Okay. So one way or another, he's just going to keep scooping up this material, this last piece here for the queen with tempo. Knight at g6 is possible here. Taking the rook equals knight is possible here. Or even equals queen is possible. Yeah, TwelveTeen has great position here. So I kind of like the early e4 push, which managed to create some weaknesses on the light squares, which he's now exploiting. You can take here, king takes, and bishop at g8, or we can just promote, or even a knight at f8, and then if that's taken by the bishop, then you promote with impunity, and the queen can't get rid of that queen. So that's interesting. I would probably just promote is probably good enough. It's going to take here first. Okay. Okay, so he wants to draw the king out before promoting, probably. Now bishop at e6, king has to step up to c6, because if it steps back to this back rank, you promote with check, and that's going to be the end. Surely, yeah, with a knight to g7 mate to follow after a block. So the king has to step over here, and now you have a number of attractive options. Knight at c3 is one of them, I guess. It's not something I was looking at, but he's just attacking the d5 square. Well, also, this is important. I didn't fully appreciate this before, but he's also defending e2, because black does have a queen in hand. So that's an important consideration. So now, you do have time to promote. Yeah, so he does promote here. You don't really want to trade your queen for that, because that's just a pawn as far as mastertan is concerned, but it looks like he has to. So now, is there any play for mastertan here? He's going to try to reroute this knight. Queen appears on e8. Yeah, that's dangerous. Can the king just run and sit on a7? I don't know. Bishop takes, or knight a4 is possible. No, rook just very smoothly comes over this e1 square, guarding the e2 point. Although I'm not sure how big of a threat that was. Mastertan with 8 seconds on the clock manages to scoop up a rook. Pawn at c5 is possible. No, 12-teen is not even going to give Mastertan that look. Probably pawn here. King was just going to step back. So 12-teen trying to place pieces around his king, but now Mastertan has managed to find what could be a mating attack. That's a nice move. Allowing this pawn to drop, just stepping up. Queen's gonna. Oh, that's gonna be nasty. He's gonna have to pre-move these last moves. It looks like he probably had a win there. White probably had a win there, but he didn't have enough time to pull it off. And then Mastertan mates with 1 second left on the clock to 12-teen's fraction of a second. So now that's tied up at 3-3, if I'm correct. Mastertan en fuego, says Flourish. Tied up. We've got a close match, guys. Going down the same Firefly Gambit on e6 here. 12-teen does like to employ this quite a bit. Mastertan, instead of queen f3, is putting his queen on e2 and his knight on f3 this time. For some reason, he's loath to push this d pawn too early in these lines, it seems. This knight now repositioning towards the center. He's looking at the f4 square. So now the d pawn is pushed, guarding the f4 square, giving his bishop some life. Pawn at f5, knocking this knight about. Does it want to go forward and just be harassed, or must it drop back, or perhaps just give it up to get some tempo? But no, you don't really want to give up another piece here. So you'd like to be able to move forward. You want to move forward with your pieces and create threats and be active. But knight b4, he's probably just going to knock it away, maybe even c3. So he's going to sack on d4, gives bishop some life. Interesting. c3 is probably an option. This knight is hanging, supposing this knight moves, the discovery. So loose pieces drop off, so it's important. Okay, so he's just going to block with his bishop instead. As a double attack on the queen and the knight here. So queen, wherever it goes, is going to have to defend this. Or he could consider just giving the queen up. And okay, so that's what he's going to do. Taking an e6 is good because it attacks the queen as well. So how do you want to recapture this? Or do you? Do you want to just throw caution to the wind and exchange queens here? I don't think that's prudent. Although maybe it's best. Takes, and I was going to say rook takes at the end, but there may have been an intermezzo that I was missing there. So he takes with the e6, or with the f pawn on e6, contending that he's going to be able to cover on these light squares. Although the f7 is always going to be a telling weakness. because he can't castle immediately, thereby shoring up the f7 spot because of this bishop. That's a nice move from mastertan. So knight appears on f4 after all. That was the downside of moving this bishop away from this diagonal, attacking now f2 and this bishop. So bishop at f3, that's natural. If you ever get rid of this bishop, remember this queen is on this nice open d file. So I'm expecting bishop at d1. This pawn here possible. Pawn here's pawn here, bishop takes. You don't want to take with the knight because then this rook hangs. So okay, so pawn at e4, distracting this bishop from the defense of this bishop, which will now be taken. That's a nice move from mastertan, scooping up this piece with this bishop instead of exposing his king. So maybe you take here first and then take, or pawn here first to drag the king out. No, he's gonna hang on to that pawn. Thinks it's more important to have in hand than to waste on f2 or to f7, because this king is always going to be weak unless it can somehow. Now even the queen side looks dangerous, so this king is just going to be perpetually weak with this bishop on the dark squares and f7 open. So there's no need to really place a pawn there yet to drag it out. Yeah, I agree with Kausasui that this bishop is a beast there on f4. TwelveTeen would love to be able to challenge or get rid of that piece. At e3, interesting. So what's the idea here? If takes, you're going to drag the king out, probably in conjunction with the sack here somehow. No, he's not. So he's just going to give up that pawn. Interesting. So now king takes. And what's your follow-up for black here? Ah, that's interesting. Can't be taken because of this rook on the half-open file. Can't be taken with the king because the queen's careens out to this h4 square. And that's going to be very dangerous. You know, he's going to do it, though. He's going to do it. He's got nerves of steel, guys. He's going to have to sit on f3. A pawn, if black had a pawn in hand, that would be mate. But he doesn't. So, okay, so he's going to content himself with picking up this bishop. And now mastertan has some minor pieces to counterattack with. But this king looks awfully exposed. Mastertan treading by the thinnest of margins here. That's something that I've actually heard that Chicken Crossroad likes to do in Bughouse a lot. Like he'll get into positions where maybe even a pawn would mate him or something like that. Even like he'd be mated by the slimmest of margins, but he's comfortable doing that because he has the rest of the situation under control, and he's calculated everything out precisely, and that's exactly what mastertan has managed to do. His king safely sits on f3, and he scoops up this seventh match to go up 4-3 now, or seventh game in the match rather, to go up 4-3. Alright, so mastertan, instead of going for this pawn chain on the dark squares, he is still going to establish his pawn on e5, go for this, solidifying his e5 point that way. Yeah, Fishy, I agree with Fishy that I was honestly a little bit skeptical about mastertan's form after his loss to Joannet, but after going down 9-1 to Joannet, because that was surprising. I was thinking that mastertan shouldn't lose so handily to Joannet, but it seems he's taken that loss to heart and kind of come back stronger for that loss. And he's making a very serious statement now in these matches, drawing 5-5, tying against Jan Lee, and now coming out so strong against TwelveTeen. He's making a serious statement. I'm here, guys. That 9-1 loss to Joannet was a fluke, and I'm here to contend for the top spots. And good on him. We all know how extraordinarily strong a guy like mastertan is. Can never discount any of these players in the candidates. So yeah, it's nice to see him putting up such a great fight against TwelveTeen, who, in my opinion, is probably the second best Crazy House player in the world. TwelveTeen playing creatively as always, going for this rook g1 and early g4 push. When he does this, I've noticed what he likes to do is put his queen on e2, and that frees him up to castle to the queen side, should that ever become a necessity. So yeah, now the queen does come out. Now he can castle queen side, where he'll be safe. Queen... Yeah, black doesn't have any diagonal pieces, although he does have a knight. So that's a nice find from mastertan. Maybe you have to defend this queen with like a bishop at e4 or something. Ah, that's better. That's a better solution, I think, taking here on f7. You don't really want to take that with the king. You can probably just sidestep to h8, although, yeah, he does. And now you can castle if you want to, unless there's a better option on the table. No, the f3 square is too weak to allow a knight drop there. So now, yeah, he's just going to castle the queen side. And notice this bishop, fianchettoed here on b2, instead of just having a pawn on b2, covers the a1 square from the queen drop, which is important. And now he has threats. Now white has threats, like a pawn at h6, for example. And when you have a piece cutting off this the only square that the king can run to, and you can attack on the dark squares, that's trouble for black often. So black will be looking both to accomplish one of two things, either cutting off this bishop from this very powerful diagonal, or trying to shore up his dark squares from ingress, from pawn drops and piece drops. And that's what bishop g5 does. Okay. So really imbalanced, but somewhat equal position, I'd say here. Pawn f7. Okay, so that can't be taken because the rook would, or the bishop would hang. Pawn at e6 blocks off the bishop. And now he's going to sack, or not sack, but exchange his rook for that bishop. If that's taken, you can probably put something on the back rank, like a pawn or rook at e8, I imagine. Or no, even if you take here, then you have rook at h8. King takes knight here. He's going to go for this though. He's going to take on e6 first. And now rook here is no longer a threat because this square is blocked off. He's going to sack there. Bishop reappears on the strong diagonal, both a defensive and an attacking piece. And that's one of the reasons bishops are actually, I don't know, for the longest time there was this idea that knights were the stronger piece in Blockhouse and Crazy House, but I think some of the stronger players prefer bishops because they can be such powerful both attacking and defensive units simultaneously, and very long range as well. You'll often see them appear on the sides of the board, attacking and defending at the same time, and two bishops stacked like this is a very powerful combination. So okay, king e7. It was probably very important figuring out what square the king wanted to step to there. And mastertan elects for e7. The rook appears on f7, but now that's no longer a possible square for another piece drop. Pawn at e6. Yeah, black is going to be very hard pressed to defend this, I feel. He has nothing on white's king side, or white's king rather, there on the queen side. And meanwhile, he's just going to be defending. That's taken, bishop here. That's going to be too much. Knight drops on one of these squares. Bishop here could skip up the queen. That's probably not necessary. That's probably mate anyway. Queen coming on the board. Bishop here is going to mate. And that's going to be mate. So well done to TwelveTeen. 4-4, guys. This is a great match so far. 4-4. We're tied up. And that means these next two games are going to be incredibly important for overall match standing. Remember, this is a 10-game match, so 6-4 would win it. 5-5 would be a tie. These next few games are going to decide that. TwelveTeen going for the Pierce, or the Modern, with an early a6. I like this way of playing very much. Often white will try to create a queen and bishop battery, glaring down the h6 square, and if black can comfortably defend that, then he's fine. If not, then he's in some trouble. But so that's what the king h7 is about, putting extra defense along or on the h6 square, as well as vacating the g8 square for a possible knight drop, should that ever become necessary after a pawn advance, kicking the knight away, and should it have no better squares to go to. It's often a useful resource to have anyway. It's a passive piece, but a useful defensive resource. So queen comes to e8, and what that's doing is reinforcing the g6 square from sacks and such. And also lends extra support to e5, although that was probably a secondary consideration of this queen e8 move. Now, okay, white is going to progress on the dark squares. That's always what these period setups are about, is whether or not white can make hay on the dark squares. Fishy dropping some knowledge about the hottest chilies in the world. I wouldn't know. I'm not a big fan of spicy food. So okay, how does black drum up some counterplay here? Because he doesn't just want to be passively defending these dark squares all game. He's going to take that, and now you don't really. You could replace a pawn here. Now instead he's going to activate his queen. Okay. Pawn f4, maybe, defending and attacking. Bishop sack on f7 is always a possibility. Getting rid of the defender of g6, like a double sack, is always a possibility. Probably not the greatest now, but maybe that's what he's considering. Sack, and then sacking on g6 and drawing the king out. Because then you have like pawn drops in f5, and the queen comes into the fray if you exchange for this knight. So that's probably something he's considering here, although he's going to have to curtail this calculation for fear of falling too far behind on the clock. He's going to be doubled up, 1 minute to 2 minutes, and you don't want to do that against TwelveTeen. We know how fast he is to begin with. So to give yourself the time deficit is probably not called for. Queen here would always pick up this bishop, but you probably don't want to give up the g5 square for a knight drop. He's going to do it though. He's going to take here and then what, knight here? Okay, so instead of taking this bishop, he's going to proceed with his attack and try to come in on the dark squares on his own account, taking here on f2. Although, yeah, I don't know, he doesn't have any other knights or anything, any other heavy pieces. All he has are diagonal pieces, and that's not really going to do much on these dark squares. Sure, you control the dark squares, but you're going to have another piece in hand, a non-diagonal piece preferably, in order to attack the light squares. Although, now that I think about it, his bishop is glaring down on h3, and that can always be sacked to pry open the light squares. Okay. This knight takes, you're going to take back. Yeah, knight would be dangerous in hand, for sure, for black. Okay, so now the sack on f7 comes. I say sack, it's not really a sack, but you get a pawn and a rook for the two pieces. Should black go down that road, although, yeah, he's gonna have to try to defend here. Okay, so you're giving up the queen, but now this can't be allowed. Knight at g3, yeah, that can't be allowed. It's too dangerous. Knight g3, king up takes, and you have bishop drops on g1 and such. It's going to be too much. Probably mating, as a matter of fact. So yeah, that queen couldn't be taken, and queen comes out, checking and defending the g3 square from the knight drop. So, maybe that was a misclick or something. Or maybe just figure out he didn't have enough resources to continue attacking. Okay, TwelveTeen has now assured himself of at least a tie, going up 5-4 in this match. Alright, this last game is for all the marbles. Can mastertan strike back and even the score up at 5-5 in this 10th game? Or can, contrary-wise, TwelveTeen win this last game and in so doing win the entire match victory? d4, knight c3. Okay. He's going to go back to this ultra sound, ultra solid h3, g3, bishop fianchetto line, which shouldn't really pose black too many problems either. So it's just going to be a game. It's just going to be a game. Bishop again repositioning to this diagonal, blocking off that pin. Rook comes to c1, so if the queen ever moves, this pawn doesn't hang. It's also a possibility maybe later in the game if you reroute this knight to push c4 now with this rook behind it. So it's a somewhat constructive move. So now exchange happens on d7. You can always replace this bishop on this diagonal, or you can try to make some progress by bringing a piece to d5, or e5 I mean. Well, this knight's going to reroute. It's often useful to to exchange this knight for this piece, so that sacks on h3 are no longer a threat. So with the pawn here and this bishop here, always menacing sacks on h3, you have to be a little bit careful. If you distract this bishop away and drops on this square. But okay, so now also sacks here are also always a possibility. You want to look out for sacks here and then exploiting the e3 square. Not such a pressing issue right now, but maybe later in the game that's something you want to be aware of. Okay, so knight appears on d5, attacking the queen. So if you just step up, maybe you're going to put the knight on f4. No, you're going to come to this more active square on g5. But it can't be kicked with bishop h4, bishop f4. Or bishop e3, okay. So bishop e3 doesn't block off this square, so you can always reroute the knight if you really want to. So queen's going to sit on h5. And now this bishop comes on, creating a battery against h6. Interesting. Battery on h6, and this knight is nicely positioned to control the dark squares as well. So I do like this. This is hanging. I'm going to recapture here first, or no, you're just going to take that straight away. Probably a wise decision there. Just to create some weaknesses around white's king. Bishop at g2, drive the queen away. Bishop at h2 isn't really much, because if you can just move the king away and no discoveries are going to hurt you, because the queen hangs. So you can do this, king step, and then just drop the queen back. That's a possibility. Or you can just drop the queen back straight away. Or even sack here. Maybe he's thinking about the sack, although, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's sound. It's probably possible to play that sack in a practical play. But yeah, mastertan is probably wisely avoiding it. Queen again on the light squares. So yeah, this knight does end up being repositioned to this f4 square. Remember, an important little nuance of not placing this bishop on f4, but placing it on e3 instead a few moves back. So now the square is open for the knight. Okay, so now the discovery. It's still not a discovery threat because the queen hangs. Queen g5. Okay, so you're stepping into a possible discovery, but I guess he's saying that there's nowhere you can move this knight, which is really devastating. This bishop also hangs, but then black gets some initiative with maybe a knight appearing on g4 or something. Okay, he's going to attack this queen. You'd like for a pawn to drop on this square or something. So in response to queen h5, I was imagining maybe rook at h3 or something, but he's going to sack on e3. That's curious. Yeah, I don't really like that. He's going to sack for that bishop, and now he's going to play defensively, I think. Just try to cover all his dark squares. Again, g5 is also often a very nice place for a diagonal piece when you're defending as black, because it controls the dark squares, as we point out with the queen a few games ago. But yeah, it looks like he's given up all the initiative and managed to let TwelveTeen into this. I don't know. Mastertan is always incredibly resourceful as a defender, though, and he will never resign. He fights to the bitter end, invariably. So, yeah, let's see if he can. I don't know. This is when it all counts. Let's see if he can actually pull this out. White, I think, with proper play, should win this. But Black has a lot of defensive resources here, and mastertan is an incredibly creative and resourceful defender. Alright, Rook drops back. mastertan has 16 seconds of the clock to TwelveTeen's just under 30. TwelveTeen covering his dark squares. White has all the pieces in hand, but Black has all the threats. That's gonna do it. This knight has to stay on the square. It can't be taken because the queen drop is gonna mate. Now it can just be sacked, and that's probably it's gonna be a queen here. It's gonna mate, and that's gonna be the match to TwelveTeen. 6-4 to TwelveTeen. Well fought by mastertan, and well earned from TwelveTeen. So crazy match. That was a lot of fun. 6-4 TwelveTeen, and that means he's probably gonna be going up in the standings. Yeah, that's going to put him. It's going to put him at number 1 in the standings right now. And what's more, if I'm not mistaken, he's only played 2 matches so far. So now, yeah, he'll be 2 for 2. So in going 2 for 2, he's going to claim the number 1 spot in the standings. And that's about all I have to say about that. Well done to both of these players. I'm going to cut off the recording here, post it on YouTube, and post it on the Crazy House World Championship forums. And hopefully be back later this week, it's weekend actually, with more candidates round action. See you guys.